I loaded the bags into the trunk of my husband's sedan, the one he used for his commute. A can of tomatoes rolled away. Under the passenger seat, I bent down, my fingers brushing against something that wasn't car mat. Plastic wrappers. I pulled them out. 3 of them. Empty condom packets. A specific brand, ribbed for her pleasure, not ours. My hand stayed there, braced against the seat. The heat of the day vanished, replaced by an internal cold. David. My David. The man who left for work at 7 a.m. and came home at 6 p.m. A predictable, steady rhythm for 20 years. I straightened up. I didn't throw them away. I placed them carefully in the glove compartment, right on top of the car manual. A marker, a challenge to myself. This was real. The next day, I told him I was taking his car for an oil change. He barely looked up from his phone. Sure, whatever. I didn't go to the mechanic. I drove to a quiet park. I searched the car, methodically. Under the seats, in the pockets, the trunk, in the spare tire well, tucked inside an old map. I found it, a small orange prescription bottle. No label. Inside, not pills, but a tiny key. A key to a post office box. Box 417. I sat in the driver's seat, the key cold in my palm. This wasn't a simple affair. This was a secret life, compartmentalized, locked away. That night, my 16-year-old daughter, Maya, was unusually quiet at dinner. She pushed her food around her plate. David was his usual self, talking about work, about the news. A perfect, smiling mask. Mom, Maya said later as I was washing dishes. She stood in the doorway, her arms wrapped around herself. Dad, he's been weird. Weird how, sweetie? I asked, my back to her, my hands submerged in soapy water. Just texting me a lot, asking where I am, who I'm with. He said he saw my friend Jake put his arm around me at the mall. He said it looked inappropriate. Her voice was small, tight. He said if I didn't stop hanging out with Jake, he'd have to tell you about the D he got in chemistry. That it would break your heart. I went still. The plate in my hand was suddenly heavy. He's just being protective, Maya. It doesn't feel protective, she whispered. It feels scary. A month ago, she had tried to tell me, and I had dismissed it. He's just stressed at work. He's overbearing, but he loves you. Now the condoms in the glove box felt like a different kind of threat. The pieces were there, but my mind refused to assemble them into the monstrous picture they formed. A week later, David announced a last-minute business trip. A one-nighter. He packed a small bag. He was almost giddy. The moment his taillights disappeared, I went to his home office. I knew his password. It was Maya's birthday, the ultimate lie of a devoted father. His email was clean. His browser history was wiped. But he'd forgotten about the cloud backup on the external hard drive I'd bought him. I plugged it in. There was a folder, innocuously named Tax Documents Old. Inside wasn't taxes. It was videos. Dozens of them. Time-stamped over the last 6 months. Support me by subscribing my channel to watch more videos like these. Now get back to it. I clicked one at random. The camera was shaky, held in a hand. The perspective was from the hallway, looking into Maya's bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. It showed David, his back to the camera, standing over Maya's bed. It was the middle of the day. She was in her school uniform, doing homework. He was just watching her. For a full 3 minutes, not saying a word, just standing there. Then, he reached out and touched her hair. She flinched, frozen. He laughed, a low, soft sound that made my stomach turn. So jumpy, sweetheart, he said. Then he walked out. I closed the video. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I felt a tectonic shift inside me, a fundamental reordering of my reality. The condoms, the key, the blackmail. It wasn't about an affair. It was a grooming process, meticulous, patient, evil. My husband wasn't just a cheater. He was a predator, and his target was in the room next to mine. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen. I poured a glass of water. My hand was perfectly steady. The time for silence was over. The time for evidence had begun. My only mistake was not believing my daughter. I would not make that mistake again. The The glass of water was cold in my hand. I drank it slowly, the ice cubes clinking. The sound unnaturally loud in the silent house. My mind was no longer a chaotic storm of horror. It was a frozen, crystalline landscape. Every thought was sharp, clear, and lethal. David was not just a monster. He was a meticulous one. To beat him, I had to be more meticulous. I went back to the computer. I didn't delete the video. I copied the entire tax documents old folder onto a small encrypted flash drive. I then emailed a copy to a new secret account. I was creating a digital life raft for the truth. Next, I went to the post office. Box 417. The tiny key fit perfectly. Inside was a stack of printed photos. Pictures of Maya, taken from a distance, at the bus stop, walking home from school, with Jake. There were also printed emails, the threatening ones he'd sent her, the ones where he posed as a concerned father, while subtly manipulating and frightening her. He was building a dossier to control her, to discredit her if she ever spoke out. I took photos of everything with my phone and left the originals undisturbed. He could not know I had been there. I had the evidence of the grooming, the blackmail, but I needed more. I needed to know the full scope. I needed to catch him in the act of a specific, unambiguous violation. I went to an electronics store in the next town over and bought 2 things. A tiny, high-resolution spy camera with motion activation and audio, and a GPS tracker. I paid in cash. That afternoon, while Maya was at school, I installed the camera. I didn't put it in her room. That felt like a further violation of her privacy. Instead, I placed it on a high bookshelf in the hallway, angled to capture anyone entering or leaving her room. It was disguised as a small black decorative box. It was virtually invisible. I planted the GPS tracker deep inside the wheel well of David's car. I then sat down with Maya. I didn't show her the videos. I didn't show her the photos from the P.O. box. The horror was mine to carry for now. Maya, I said, my voice calm and serious. I need you to listen to me very carefully. I believe you about your father. Everything you said. And I am handling it. Her eyes widened, filling with a hope so fragile it broke my heart. You are? Yes, but I need you to do something for me. It's going to be hard. I need you to act normal. When he texts you, give short, non-committal answers. Don't engage. Don't argue. If he tries to talk to you alone, find an excuse to leave the room. Can you do that? She nodded, a single determined jerk of her head. Yes. For the next few days, I continued, I need you to sleep in my room with me. Tell him you're having bad dreams. It will be our little secret. This was my first layer of protection. He would not have access to her at night. The next few days were an exercise in surreal tension. David was home, playing the part of the doting husband and father. I played my part, the slightly distracted busy wife. But underneath, I was a spy in my own home, watching the clock, monitoring the camera's feed on a separate, hidden tablet. The GPS tracker showed his predictable route to work and back. The camera showed nothing but empty hallway. Then, on the 3rd night, it happened. It was 1:17 a.m. A notification flashed on my tablet. Motion detected in the hallway. I tapped the live feed. David was outside Maya's door. He was wearing only his boxers. He tested the knob. It was locked, because she was in my bed, safe. He stood there for a long moment, his head cocked, listening. Then a sound escaped him, a low, frustrated growl. He slammed his palm against the doorframe, the impact silent on the video, but violent in its intent. He turned and stalked back to his room. I watched the recording 5 times. His body language was not that of a concerned father checking on a sleeping child. It was the posture of a predator denied its prey. It was the final piece of psychological evidence I needed. But it wasn't enough for the police. A man trying the door of his daughter's room was not a crime. I needed him to speak. I needed him to confess. The trap was set. But the bait was my daughter's safety, and I would never, ever use it. So I had to become the bait myself. I waited until the weekend. David was in a foul mood, the frustration from the other night simmering under the surface. I deliberately provoked him. You've been so distant, David. I said over breakfast, my tone light, almost airy. Is everything okay at work? Or is it something else? His eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said, smiling a gentle, innocent smile. It's just, a wife can tell. You seem tense, like you have a secret. I saw the alarm flash in his eyes, quickly masked by anger. I don't have secrets. Don't be ridiculous. Oh, I'm sure you don't, I said, getting up to clear my plate. I walked past him, letting my phone, which I had set to record audio, accidentally fall from my pocket onto the kitchen counter. The screen lit up, showing the recording was active. I pretended not to notice and walked into the laundry room, leaving him alone with it. I stood behind the laundry room door, my heart hammering. It was a gamble. If he checked the phone, he would see the recording and know. But I was counting on his arrogance, his belief that I was a clueless, trusting fool. I heard his chair scrape back. I heard his footsteps approach the counter. There was a long, silent pause. I held my breath. Then, I heard him mutter. A low, venomous whisper meant only for himself, but perfectly captured by the phone's sensitive microphone. Stupid bitch. She has no idea what I'm capable of. No one takes what's mine. No one. The footsteps retreated. I waited a full minute before going back into the kitchen, casually picking up my phone as if I'd just remembered it. I had it. A clear, audible threat. It wasn't a confession of his specific crimes, but it was a crack in his armor. It was the voice of the monster recorded. The noose was tightening. I had the videos, the blackmail evidence, the proof of his nocturnal stalking, and now, a recorded threat. My only mistake was ever trusting him, and his was believing that my silence was ignorance. He was about to learn the price of underestimating a mother. The hunt was over. It was time for the kill. The recording of David's whisper played through my earbuds one more time. Stupid bitch! She has no idea what I'm capable of. I saved the file in 3 separate, secure locations. The evidence was now a weapon, loaded and ready. But a direct confrontation was still too dangerous. He was a cornered animal, and I couldn't predict his violence. I needed to orchestrate a scenario where he was powerless. My first move was logistical. I rented a small furnished apartment across town, under a pseudonym, paying 6 months in advance with cash from a safe deposit box David knew nothing about. It was a bolt hole, a place for Maya and me to vanish to when the time was right. I stocked it with basic supplies, new clothes, and prepaid phones. Next, I needed an ally. Not the police, not yet. I needed someone whose presence would shatter David's carefully constructed reality. I needed his brother, Carl. Carl was a retired police sergeant, a man of rigid, unbending ethics who had always been slightly wary of David's slick charm. I called him from a payphone. Carl, it's Clara. I need to see you. It's about David. It's bad. Life and death. He was at my designated meeting spot, a quiet corner of a public library, within the hour. I didn't show him the videos from Maya's hallway. I couldn't bear to. But I showed him the photos from the P.O. box, the surveillance photos of Maya. I played him the audio of David's threat. I told him about the condoms, the key, the blackmail over a boy. Carl's face, usually a placid mask, went through a rapid, painful transformation, confusion, disbelief, dawning horror, and finally a cold, hard fury. My God. Clara! He breathed, his hands clenching into fists on the table. Has he touched her? I have no physical proof of that. But the intent is there. He's grooming her. He's a predator. And I'm afraid of what he'll do when he realizes I know. Carl nodded, his cop brain now fully engaged. You're right to be afraid. We do this by the book. We get a confession, then we take him down. He laid out a plan. It was risky, but it was the only way. The stage was set for Saturday. David was scheduled to play golf in the morning. I told him Maya and I were going to a day spa, a mother-daughter treat. He'd seemed pleased. The idea of us being gone for hours, fitting perfectly into his own secret world. We didn't go to the spa. We went to the new apartment. I settled Maya there with books and movies, telling her it was a surprise staycation. She was confused but trusted me. Then I drove back home. Carl was already there, parked a block away in an unmarked car, a high-end digital recorder in his hand, connected to the house's landline. At 11 a.m., right when David would be on the back nine, I made the call. My voice was shaking, but not from fear, from manufactured hysteria. David, you have to come home. Right now. Clara? What's wrong? I'm in the middle of my game. It's Maya. She's gone. She left a note. She said she can't live here anymore because of you. She said you've been touching her. She's running away. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. I could almost feel the ice forming in his veins. Then, his voice came back, low and dangerously controlled. What are you talking about? That's insane. She's a lying little... She's not lying! I screamed, sobbing convincingly. I found your things, David. The condoms in your car, the key, the pictures of her in the P.O. box. I know everything! And now she's gone because of you. I had thrown it all at him. The shock and panic would be overwhelming. His carefully built walls were crumbling in a single phone call. You stay right there, he snarled, his composure finally cracking. Don't you call anyone, you hear me? Don't you dare call the police! I'm coming home. We will fix this. She's just a confused girl. She doesn't know what she's saying. I can explain everything. Explain what? I cried. Explain why you have condoms that aren't for me. Explain why you have a secret box full of pictures of your own daughter. Explain why you threatened her? Because she's mine, he roared, the sound exploding through the phone line. A raw, unfiltered confession captured perfectly on Carl's recorder. She is my daughter, and I will not have some little punk from school ruining her. I was protecting her, and you were never enough. You think I could be satisfied with you? She's young, she's beautiful, she's everything you're not, and if she's gone, it's your fault for putting these ideas in her head. The line went dead. I stood in the silent living room, my body trembling not with manufactured hysteria, but with the aftershock of hearing the pure, unadulterated evil I had been married to. She's mine. Carl's text came through a second later. Got it all. Full confession. Get out, now. I didn't grab a bag. I didn't look back. I walked out of the house I had shared with a monster, got in my car, and drove to my daughter, to our new, safe, temporary home. My husband was on his way, thinking he was coming home to control the narrative, to intimidate his wife into silence. He was wrong. He was driving directly into a trap, built with his own words. The confession was no longer just about intent. It was an admission of ownership, of warped desire, of criminal guilt. The hunter had just become the prey, and the walls of his world were about to collapse. I pulled into the parking garage beneath the safe apartment, my hands locked tight on the steering wheel. The echo of David's voice, "She's mine," was a poison in my veins. I sat there for a full 5 minutes, just breathing, letting the concrete and steel around me ground the screaming chaos in my head. Then I wiped my face, got out, and walked to the elevator. I had to be solid for Maya. Quick, direct voiceover. This is where the trap springs. You will not believe what happens next. Make sure you're subscribed. She was on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, watching a movie. She looked up, her eyes wide. Mom, are you okay? It started, baby, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I sat beside her and took her hand. Your father knows that, I know. I baited him, and he confessed to everything. Carl recorded it all. Her face paled. What did he say? I couldn't give her the words. I just shook my head. Enough to put him away. But he's dangerous now, more than ever. We don't leave this apartment until I say so. Understood? She nodded, a silent tear tracing down her cheek. I held her. We were a fortress of two. My phone buzzed. It was Carl. He's here, raging. I've called it in. ETA 5 minutes. He had sent a short video clip from a discreet camera he'd pointed at the house. David was on our front lawn, screaming my name, pounding on the door. His face was a grotesque mask of fury. The respectable facade was gone, stripped away to reveal the raw, entitled monster beneath. My personal phone started to blow up. David. Dozens of calls. A torrent of texts that escalated from furious demands to pathetic pleas to vile threats. Where are you? You bring her back right now. Clara, please, we can fix this. It's a misunderstanding. If you ruin my life, I will destroy you. I swear to God I will find you and I will kill you both. I didn't block him. Every message, every missed call was more evidence. I took screenshots of everything and forwarded them to Carl and my secret email. Within minutes, the scene at our house transformed. 2 squad cars, lights flashing but silent, pulled up. Carl, showing his badge, met them. I watched it unfold live on the video feed Carl was streaming to my tablet. I saw David's shock as the officers approached. He sputtered, pointing at the house. His story of a runaway daughter and a hysterical wife already falling apart. Then Carl played it. He held up his digital recorder, and David's own voice, loud and clear, filled the quiet suburban street. Because she's mine. I was protecting her. And you were never enough. She's young, she's beautiful, she's everything you're not. The change in the officers was immediate. Their postures shifted from routine to rigid. David's face went slack with a horror far greater than any anger. He heard his own words, the ugliness he'd kept hidden for so long, broadcast back to him in the bright light of day. He tried to talk, to explain it away. But the confession was undeniable. They didn't just arrest him. They processed him. Hands behind his back, the click of the cuffs, the press of a hand on his head as they guided him into the back of the squad car. I watched the car pull away, taking the monster out of our neighborhood, out of our lives. A strange, heavy silence settled over the video feed. It was over, and yet it wasn't. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A distorted, robotic voice spoke. This isn't over, Clara. He has friends. You're a dead woman. The call ended. My blood ran cold. David was in custody, but his threat had just taken on a new, more sinister form. He wasn't working alone. The net had closed on him, but a wider, darker web was still out there. My only mistake was thinking the monster was just one man. I had cut off the head, but the body was still twitching, and it knew my name. The legal battle was won. The real war for our survival was just beginning. The robotic voice on the phone echoed in the silent apartment. You're a dead woman. The victory of David's arrest evaporated, replaced by a colder, more diffuse fear. He wasn't a lone predator. He was part of something. The danger is far from over. What I discovered next was more terrifying than my husband. I called Carl immediately. He has someone on the outside, a friend. They just threatened me. Carl's voice was grim. I was afraid of this. I'll put a patrol car near your location. But Clara, you need to understand. These threats, from an unknown number with a voice distorter. It's hard to trace. It's meant to terrorize you. It was working. Maya was watching me, her eyes huge. Mom? It's okay, I said, the lie smooth on my lips. The police are handling it. I had to project calm, even as my insides twisted. I couldn't let his shadow steal the safety we had just fought for. While Maya slept that night, I worked. The police had David's physical devices, but I still had the cloud backup. I went back into the tax documents old folder. I had been so focused on the videos of Maya, I had ignored everything else. There were other files, spreadsheets, encrypted documents. I couldn't break the encryption, but the spreadsheet file names were clear. Network.contacts. Distribution. A network. Distribution of what? Then I found a folder of older videos, dated from 2 years ago. My blood went cold. They weren't of Maya. They were of other girls, teenagers, in parks, at malls. Some were surreptitiously filmed, like the ones of Maya. Others were different. The girls looked directly at the camera, nervous, performing. They were in a cheap, nondescript room, a hotel room. David wasn't just a predator. He was a collector, and possibly a distributor. This was the web. This was what the anonymous threat was protecting. I called Carl first thing in the morning. It's bigger than Maya. There are other girls. I think he's part of a ring. The atmosphere on the phone changed. This was no longer a domestic crime. It was a federal one. Within hours, our safe apartment was swarming with new people. Not local police. Serious men and women in plain clothes from the FBI. They took my evidence. They took my statements. They were polite, professional, and their focus was absolute. Our protection detail was upgraded from a local patrol car to 2 stoic federal agents stationed outside our door. The game had changed entirely. David was no longer just my problem. He was an asset, a lead. The FBI explained that they would offer him a deal, a reduced sentence in exchange for rolling over on his entire network, for naming names, giving up the distributors, the other collectors. I was relieved, and then I was sickened. To get justice for those other girls, my husband might get a lighter sentence. The calculus of it was horrifying. A week later, the lead FBI agent, a woman named Ramos, came to see me. We confronted him with the new evidence. He's not talking. He's smug. He believes his friends on the outside will protect him. He believes they'll silence you before we can make a case. The robotic threat hadn't been a bluff. It was a promise from a functioning organization. What do we do? I asked, my voice hollow. We wait, Agent Ramos said. And we protect you, but you need to be prepared. If we can't flip him, the case against the network weakens. His trial for the crimes against your daughter will proceed. But the larger threat, it might remain out there. The victory felt hollow, poisoned. We had cut the snake from our lives, but the nest was still thriving, and it knew we had pointed the authorities in its direction. My only mistake was thinking the battle ended with the arrest. I had won the war for my daughter's immediate safety, but I had stumbled into a much larger, darker conflict. The silence after the storm was not peace. It was the eye of a hurricane, and the other side of the wall was coming. The silence in the safe apartment was no longer peaceful. It was the silence of a bunker waiting for an attack. The 2 federal agents outside our door were a comfort and a constant reminder. The danger was real. It was organized, and it was waiting for a chance. David, in his cell, had become a fortress of silence, protected by the terrifying loyalty of the web he was part of. Also, Subscribe My Channel weeks turned into a month. The legal proceedings for the charges against Maya were moving forward, a slow, grinding process. But the larger case, the one against the network, was stalled. Without David's testimony, they had fragments, the videos I provided, the encrypted files their texts were slowly breaking, but not enough for the wide net they needed to cast. Agent Ramos visited again. Her face was grim. He's not breaking. His lawyer is pushing for a plea deal that's lenient, too lenient. He'll serve time, but not what he deserves, and the network will remain intact. I looked at Maya, who was coloring at the table, trying to act normal in a world that was anything but. I thought of the other girls in those videos, their faces haunted and young. I thought of the robotic voice on the phone. You're a dead woman. A cold final resolve settled over me. David thought his silence was a shield. He thought the threat of his friends was a sword. He was wrong on both counts. I asked Agent Ramos, if you had a name, just one solid name from the outside, would that be enough? She eyed me carefully. It would be a start. It would be a crack. Why? Give me a day, I said. That night, I did the one thing I had promised myself I would never do. I logged into a secret social media account I knew David used. He was arrogant. He'd used a variation of the same password for everything. I scrolled through his messages, my stomach churning. Most were deleted, but he had one ongoing conversation with a user named Vanguard77. The messages were cryptic, using code words for meeting spots and new acquisitions. But there was one slip, one moment of carelessness. Months ago, Vanguard 77 had written, "Don't worry about the payment. I'll have my boy Leo drop it at the usual spot. He manages the auto shop on Elm." Leo. An auto shop on Elm. It wasn't much. But it was a thread. I didn't go to the auto shop. That was a job for the FBI. I gave the name and the clue to Agent Ramos. Within 48 hours, they had Leo. He was a low-level courier, but he was scared. He talked. He gave them 2 more names. Those 2 gave more. The crack became a fissure, and the fissure became a collapse. The web was unraveling from the bottom up. Arrests were made across the state. It was in the news. A major bust of a predatory ring. David's name was kept out of the initial reports, but his value as a silent asset plummeted. His leverage was gone. His lawyer called me. David wanted to talk. I went to the prison, Agent Ramos by my side. He sat across from me in the visitation room, looking smaller, deflated. The smugness was gone. "You," he whispered, his voice ragged. "Me," I confirmed. "They're all gone. Because of you?" "No," I said, my voice flat and cold. "Because of you. You brought this into our home. You targeted our daughter. You just never considered that I was more than a housewife you could intimidate." He had nothing left. No threats, no pleas. His network was shattered. His friends were in cages of their own. He was utterly alone. He took a full plea deal the next day. No reduced sentence. Life in prison, with no chance of parole, for a long list of charges related to Maya and the other girls. He would die in a concrete box. The final court hearing was a formality. Maya and I did not attend. We read about it in the paper. It was over. We moved out of the safe apartment and into a new home in a new state. A house with a garden and no memories. Maya started at a new school. She began to smile again. A real smile that reached her eyes. I stood in my new kitchen one morning, sunlight streaming in. It was quiet, but this silence was different. It was no longer the silence of waiting or fear. It was the silence of peace, hard-won, paid for in blood and terror. But it was real. My husband tried to bury the truth by silencing me. He thought his secrets were safe in the dark. But he made one fatal miscalculation. He forgot that a mother's love is not just a soft thing. It is also a weapon. And when you threaten her child, she becomes a force of nature. I didn't just survive him. I dismantled his entire world, brick by rotten brick. My only mistake was ever trusting him. And my victory was ensuring his evil died with him in that cell, while we walked free into the sun.